Have you ever opened your heart and your home to someone only to be treated like you were the enemy? I did. I raised my son with love, gave my blessings to his marriage, and handed over the keys to our family home. But nothing could prepare me for the storm that came with my daughter-in-law. If you're watching this, dear friends, please tell me, have you ever trusted someone who slowly turned your world into a battlefield? If this story moves you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs strength, and subscribe for more real stories. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you faced betrayal from someone you loved like family? I read every single story. My name is Eleanor Walters. I'm 67 years old, living in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon. I've always believed in kindness, in keeping a warm home and a warm heart. But sometimes, kindness becomes the very weapon others use against you. It began the day my son, Andrew, brought home his new wife, Melissa. Melissa had the kind of charm that could melt stone. Polite, well-spoken, always smiling. She called me Mom with a sweetness that felt genuine. I believed her. I believed everything she showed me. I even gave her my grandmother's necklace on their wedding day, a family heirloom that had been passed down for 4 generations. But it didn't take long before I saw the cracks beneath the gloss. At first, they were just tiny things. She started rearranging the furniture without asking. She'd scoff at the meals I cooked and prefer takeout. When Andrew wasn't around, she barely said a word to me. But when he returned from work, she would suddenly turn into the perfect daughter-in-law. She played a role, and I was the unwanted extra in her drama. One day, she brought up the topic I feared most. "Mom," she said casually while sipping her coffee, "Andrew and I were talking. You know, it might be easier if the house were under his name now. It just makes legal things simpler. You're retired. You shouldn't worry about paperwork anymore." I looked at her for a long moment. "Melissa, this is my home. I worked for this. I raised Andrew here. Why would I hand it over?" She smiled, but something in her eyes turned cold. "Oh, of course. Just a thought." But that thought turned into daily suggestions. She began isolating me, speaking behind closed doors, whispering things to Andrew that made him look at me differently. Suddenly, he started siding with her on everything. He began doubting me, as if I were just an old woman losing her mind. Then came the cruelty. Melissa would lock the thermostat, leaving the house freezing during winter nights. She accused me of stealing from her purse, something I'd never imagined hearing under my own roof. She started calling me senile in front of guests, laughing it off as a joke. But it wasn't a joke. She was trying to push me out of my home, out of my son's heart, out of my life. And still, I stayed quiet. I stayed kind. I believed she would change. But oh, how wrong I was. They say true cruelty doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly until you're too numb to realize how far you've fallen. For me, it started with something as small and quiet as a thermostat. It was the middle of December, and the house was cold, so cold my hands ached when I touched the sink in the morning. I went to adjust the thermostat, only to find it locked behind a password. At first, I thought it was an error. I called out, "Melissa? Did you change the settings?" She came downstairs in that silk robe she always wore, holding her phone in one hand, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, yeah, I set a lock on it," she said casually. "We're trying to save energy. You know, bills and all." I blinked. "But I'm freezing." "It's not that bad. Just wear an extra sweater, Mom. Besides, at your age, you should keep moving. You'll feel warmer." And she walked off. That night, I slept in 2 pairs of socks, a sweater, and wrapped in 3 blankets. Still, I shivered. My joints screamed and my back throbbed. But Andrew didn't notice. He was too busy listening to her. When I mentioned it to him the next morning, he sighed and said, "Mom, Melissa's just being practical. We can't keep the heat blasting all day. You're not the only one living here. Not the only one. That's what I had become, just another person in the house. I started to keep a diary. I didn't have many friends left, no one who'd believe me anyway. But writing helped. One evening, I found my journal had been moved. Pages folded, bookmarks gone. Melissa. When I asked her, she smirked and said, "Oh, that old thing." I thought it was trash. "You really need to stop writing about the past, Mom. It's not healthy." She read it. She read my private thoughts. That same week, she threw away my arthritis cream and replaced it with a cheaper brand that caused a rash. When I confronted her, she said, "I just thought it was time for a change. You're always stuck in your routines." And Andrew? He started suggesting things like, maybe we should get a nurse to check on you once a week, or you could look into senior housing communities, just in case you want more freedom. Freedom? I had none left in my own home. I want to ask you watching right now, has anyone ever tried to erase your place in your own family? Have you been treated like a burden when all you gave was love? If you have, tell me in the comments. I'm listening. I read every story you leave behind. And don't forget to like and share if you believe no mother should ever be made to feel like this. But back then, I was still hoping it would get better. I didn't know the worst was yet to come, because the thermostat was just her first weapon. Some betrayals are loud, shouting, slamming doors, screaming accusations. But others are quiet, whispered, hidden, and far more dangerous. One morning, I was cleaning out the top drawer of my filing cabinet where I kept all my important papers when I realized something was missing. The copy of my will. Gone. I froze. I always kept it in a blue folder labeled private, legal. It was the only copy I had in the house. It wasn't just about property, it included my wishes, everything from health directives to who gets what when I'm gone. I may be old, but I'm not foolish. Or so I thought. I walked out into the kitchen and found Melissa on the phone, laughing softly with someone. Her voice dropped when she saw me. "I'll call you back," she said quickly and ended the call. "Melissa," I asked gently, "have you seen a blue folder in the study drawer?" It had my will in it. Her face went blank for a second, too blank. Then she shook her head and said, "Why would I go through your things, Eleanor?" It was the first time she didn't call me Mom, and I caught the flicker in her eyes like she knew exactly what folder I was talking about. I checked every corner of the house, every drawer, every bag. Nothing. The next day, Andrew sat me down. "Mom," he said, "Melissa told me you've been forgetting things lately. Losing things. Getting confused. Maybe we should think about power of attorney, just to keep everything safe." I couldn't breathe. My son, the boy I raised with bedtime stories and homemade soup, was now asking for legal control over my life. And I knew exactly who was planting the seeds. Melissa was trying to erase me from my own future. I asked him, "Did you see my will?" "No," he replied, frowning. "But if you lost it, we can always draft a new one with a lawyer we trust." Melissa's uncle is an attorney. Of course he was. She was planning it all, slowly building a case that I was senile, unstable, and unfit. And with the will gone, I had no legal paper to protect what little I had left. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands trembling. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the walls of the house I built and wondered how it had come to this. Let me ask you, friends, have you ever had someone try to rewrite your life while you're still living it? If you've gone through something like this, leave a comment. I want to hear your story. I'm not alone in this. I know others have walked this road too. And if you believe no mother should be silenced in her own home, please like this video and subscribe. It gives strength to people like me, who sometimes feel like we're disappearing. But not anymore. That night, something changed in me. If she was coming for my home, my will, and my mind, then I would fight. Quietly, carefully, but I would fight back. A few days later, just as I feared, the snake slithered through the door in a crisp gray suit and shiny shoes, Melissa's uncle, Richard Harper. He introduced himself with a wide, fake smile and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Walters." Melissa and Andrew told me you might need a little help organizing your affairs. I offered him tea out of courtesy, but my hands were trembling. Not with fear, no, not anymore. With quiet, simmering anger. I didn't ask for a lawyer, I said firmly, watching his every move. Oh, I understand. This is just an informal conversation, he replied, opening his leather briefcase anyway. They're just worried about your health. Melissa mentioned some forgetfulness. You know, at your age, these things happen. There it was again. At your age. I smiled. Funny, I don't recall forgetting the part where I raised my son by myself after his father died, paid off this house with my own money, and took care of this family for 4 decades. He paused, blinking. Melissa, standing just behind him with her arms folded, flashed a tight smile. He tried again, softer this time. Look, it's really just about safety. We want to help you. If we draft a simple transfer of property, it'll save your family a lot of trouble in the future. A transfer of property. Melissa didn't want to wait until I was dead. She wanted it now. I told him I needed time to think and asked them to leave. Melissa didn't say a word, but her silence was louder than any threat. That night, I went to the basement. I dug through old shoeboxes until I found what I was looking for, my handwritten list of emergency contacts, including my longtime friend and neighbor, Margaret Benson. She was an old real estate paralegal, now retired, but sharp as a knife. I called her immediately. Eleanor, she said, surprised. It's been years. Are you okay? No, I whispered. I think I'm about to be robbed by my own family. She came over the next morning. We spent hours going through the remaining documents, making copies of everything I had and locking them in a fireproof box. Then we made an appointment with her trusted lawyer, someone not connected to Melissa's family. You see, I was done being the soft-spoken mother-in-law. They wanted a fragile old woman, someone they could trick with fake concern and empty smiles. But now, they would meet Eleanor Walters, the woman who survived losing her husband, raising a child alone, and building a life from nothing. To those watching right now, have you ever had to smile through fake kindness just to survive under your own roof? If this is your story too, even a part of it, share your experience in the comments. And please like, share, and subscribe if you believe no elderly woman should ever be pressured to give up her life's work. That day, as Melissa walked past me in the hallway, she said, Uncle Richard is going to call again. Just so you know. I looked her straight in the eye and smiled. Tell him to bring a warrant next time. Words can heal. And words can kill. Melissa never raised a hand against me. No bruises. No screaming matches. Just a daily drip of poisoned words, each one designed to corrode my confidence, my sanity, and eventually, my place in the world. It began subtly. She would sigh heavily when I entered the room. Or whispered just loud enough that I could hear from the hallway, she's so lost these days. Did you see how long she stared at the fridge yesterday? Poor thing. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining things. But then she took it up a notch. She started losing items and blaming me. Where's my wedding ring, Eleanor? You were in our bedroom folding laundry, weren't you? My prescription's missing. Did you move it again? By accident? Andrew, I think your mom needs a checkup. She's becoming forgetful. I'm genuinely worried. Those last words, I'm genuinely worried, she used them like daggers wrapped in lace. She knew exactly what she was doing. Manipulating my son's trust. Painting me as an old, confused woman while pretending to be the devoted daughter-in-law. One night, Andrew came home from work looking uneasy. He sat at the kitchen table with a heaviness in his voice I hadn't heard before. Mom, he said, Melissa thinks you might be depressed. Maybe seeing a therapist could help. You've been off lately. I looked at him, my boy, the same boy I held during thunderstorms, who cried when he scraped his knee, and I saw doubt in his eyes. Doubt planted and watered by the woman he called his wife. I didn't get angry. I just asked, Andrew, do you think I'm losing my mind? He hesitated. No, Mom. I don't know. Don't want you to be lonely or anxious. Lonely? Of course I was lonely. He no longer sat with me for tea. He barely asked how my day was. My days were spent avoiding Melissa, dodging her barbs, and counting the hours until the next round of gaslighting began. I waited until he went to bed, then sat alone in the dark living room. I didn't cry. I planned. I began documenting everything, every cruel comment, every misplaced item, every cold interaction. I started recording conversations with my phone in my apron pocket. Quiet, legal, and necessary. If Melissa wanted to build a case that I was unfit, then I'd build a case to prove the truth. To those of you watching, have you ever been made to question your own reality? Have you been manipulated until you began to doubt yourself? If so, please share your story below. You are not alone. And if this story feels close to your heart, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs strength, and subscribe for more real-life stories. And tell me, where are you watching from? Australia? Canada? The UK? I want to know how far this message travels. Because no matter the country, no one should suffer in silence in their own home. Sometimes the truth doesn't scream, it whispers behind closed doors when no one thinks you're listening. I was in the laundry room one afternoon, folding towels in silence, when I heard voices drifting in from the living room. Melissa was on a video call. I should have walked away, but something in her tone, excited, hushed, almost greedy, stopped me cold. And once the papers are signed, we'll finally list the house, she said, her voice low. It's worth at least $650 on the market. With the basement finished, maybe even more. My heart nearly stopped. Another voice replied, she'll go for it eventually. Or Andrew will push it. You just have to keep working on him. Melissa laughed softly. Trust me, I already am. I stayed frozen behind the laundry room door, clutching a towel in my hand like it was the only thing keeping me upright. They were planning to sell my home of 40 years. The house where I raised Andrew, where my husband and I hung Christmas lights, where I planted daffodils in the spring. And they were doing it behind my back. I backed away silently, heart pounding. That night, I barely ate. Melissa kept glancing at me across the table, probably wondering if I'd heard anything. I didn't give her the satisfaction. But inside, a storm had begun. I pulled out my hidden recordings and played the audio for Margaret the next morning. Oh my God, she whispered, staring at me with wide eyes. This is enough to file a protection order, and maybe more. Eleanor, they're trying to build a legal case to take over your estate and kick you out. This isn't just emotional abuse. This is calculated theft. I nodded. I knew that now. We immediately got to work. Margaret helped me draft an updated will and power of attorney, naming a trusted third-party trustee. We made arrangements with a new bank. I removed Andrew's access to my accounts, froze the home title from being transferred without my consent, and contacted a social worker to record the abuse history, just in case. Melissa thought she had one. She didn't know I had already started turning the gears of justice. Let me ask you, have you ever uncovered a lie so big it made your whole body go cold? Did someone ever try to steal what was yours, piece by piece, while smiling in your face? Tell me your story in the comments if you've lived through something like this. I read everyone. And please like and share this video if you believe truth always finds its way, even when hidden under layers of betrayal. Subscribe for more stories that speak the truth people are too afraid to tell. Because Melissa was about to learn. I wasn't weak. I was just quiet. Until now. It was my 68th birthday. I didn't expect balloons or grand celebrations. I've lived long enough to understand that love isn't always loud. A card, a warm meal, or a hug, that's all I ever wanted. That's all a mother really needs. But this birthday? It felt like a punishment. Melissa woke up late, sauntered into the kitchen, and didn't say a word. Not a single word. No happy birthday, no smile, no acknowledgement. Andrew followed her lead. He gave me a distracted "hey" morning as he scrolled through his phone and left for work. They both knew what day it was. I'd raised that boy to never forget birthdays, not even the dog's. I spent the morning alone. No visitors. No cake. Not even a phone call from Andrew during his lunch break. Around 3 p.m., Melissa brought out a store-bought cake, dry. No candles, no decoration. She placed it on the table like it was a burden. "Here," she said. "Let's not make this a big deal. You're not a kid anymore." Then she cut herself a slice first. I stared at the empty chair across from me, my husband's old spot. He would have never allowed this. When Andrew came home, Melissa handed him a beer and whispered something in his ear. They laughed. That night, I overheard Melissa say to him, "Why does she need all this attention? Honestly, she should be grateful she's not in a home. She acts like we owe her something." I stood just around the corner, holding onto the staircase rail so tightly my knuckles turned white. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not just my heart, my patience, my silence, my forgiveness. They weren't just ignoring me. They were erasing me. That night, I walked out onto the porch and stared at the stars. And I whispered, never again. Never again would I wait for kindness. Never again would I tolerate crumbs from a table I built. Never again would I let them think I was weak just because I was quiet. To those of you watching, have you ever had a special day ruined by the very people you loved most? Have you ever been made to feel invisible when all you wanted was a little warmth? Tell me in the comments if you've lived through a birthday like mine. And please, give this video a like. Share it. Subscribe if you believe no mother should ever have to beg to be remembered. That birthday was the last time I waited for their love. From that point on, I decided to take back everything they tried to steal. When you've been pushed far enough, something inside you changes. It's like flipping a switch. You go from hoping for kindness to preparing for war. The day after my birthday humiliation, I woke up early. Before the house stirred, before Melissa put on her perfect wife face, before Andrew opened his laptop for work, I acted. I went straight to the safe behind my bedroom armoire. Inside were the original property documents, the title deed to the house, a backup of my savings account records, and most importantly, the jewelry. The heirlooms, the pieces passed down from my grandmother to my mother to me. I gathered everything. I placed the most important papers into a new fireproof lockbox Margaret had gifted me. Then I called a locksmith. When he arrived, Melissa came downstairs in her robe, eyebrows raised. "What's going on here?" "Just securing a few things," I said calmly, without looking at her. She forced a chuckle. "You know, it's not very trusting to start locking up things from your own family." I looked her dead in the eyes. Then maybe the family should have behaved like family. She stood frozen, not expecting that answer. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her face, uncertainty. After the locksmith left, I moved the safe to the back closet in the guest bedroom, then covered it with old clothes and linens. I placed a small Bible on top, knowing Melissa wouldn't dare touch it. She didn't respect me, but she liked to pretend she respected appearances. From that day on, I locked my bedroom every time I left the house. I stopped leaving my phone out. I updated all my passwords. I cut off Andrew's auto access to my bank accounts quietly, legally, completely. And I began leaving the house more. Margaret and I would meet twice a week at the cafe down the road, where we reviewed documents, recorded statements, and consulted her old attorney friend. We were building a case. A wall of truth. Melissa noticed. She tried to pull me aside one morning. "Eleanor, I feel like things have gotten tense between us. I want us to be close again." I smiled politely and replied, "You'd need to be close to someone before you could grow distant." "We were never close, Melissa. You just needed something from me." She looked like I had slapped her across the face. To everyone watching, have you ever had someone pretend to care just so they could get closer to your things, your assets, your life? Let me know in the comments if someone ever sweet-talked you, only to show their true colors later. I read your stories and they give me strength. And if you believe in protecting what's yours, please like this video. Share it with someone who might be going through the same betrayal. Subscribe if you believe no one, no matter how old, deserves to be treated like they're disposable. That day, I realized something powerful. Melissa wanted control. But I had something she didn't: experience. And I was done letting her think I was weak. Cruelty has many faces, but betrayal wears the face you used to trust. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Andrew had gone out for a business lunch, and I was upstairs folding laundry. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then suddenly, I heard Melissa shouting from the kitchen. "Oh my God! No, this is too much." I hurried downstairs, my heart pounding. She was standing by the kitchen drawer, holding a wad of cash and a broken jewelry case, my jewelry case. "What happened?" I asked, already feeling a chill crawl up my spine. She looked at me with wide, shocked eyes. I found this shoved behind the spice rack. Andrew's college fund envelope is missing money. And this is your jewelry box, right? Why is it hidden here? I stared at her, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. She was staging a scene. "I don't know what game you're playing," I said, voice trembling. "But that box was in my locked room yesterday." She tilted her head, faux innocent. "Maybe you moved it and forgot?" And just like that, she planted the seed. The same one she had been watering for weeks. Eleanor is forgetful. Eleanor is confused. Eleanor might not be well. When Andrew came home, she broke down in tears, real, practiced tears. "I didn't want to say anything, but I think your mother is losing touch. I'm scared, Andrew. What if she forgets the stove on next?" I stood there, watching my son's face shift from concern to doubt. "Mom," he said, "how did your jewelry box end up in the kitchen drawer?" I looked at him, the boy I raised, and said one word: "Ask her." Melissa gasped, like I'd slapped her. "Are you accusing me?" "No," I said. "I'm saying I don't trust you. And I won't play along with your little script anymore." She didn't say another word that night. But I could feel the air tighten, like the walls were closing in. That evening, I sent a voice memo to Margaret, describing everything, every detail, every move. We logged it, filed it, stored it in a secure folder. Let me ask you something. Friends watching this, has anyone ever tried to set you up? To make you look like the villain in your own story? Have you ever been made to feel like you were going crazy when the real madness was the manipulation around you? Please share your experience in the comments. I promise, your voice matters. And if this chapter hit home for you, give this video a like, share it with someone who needs strength, and subscribe to this channel for more true, emotional stories. I'm listening, and so are others. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something. She wasn't just cruel. She was dangerous. And I would need to be smarter than I'd ever been in my life to stop her. When someone tries to erase your truth, you find a way to record it. After Melissa tried to frame me with that staged jewelry stunt, I knew I couldn't afford to just react anymore. I had to prove what was happening. Margaret and I met the next day, and I asked the question I never thought I'd say out loud: "Can we install a camera?" She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "We don't just can, Eleanor. We must." By the following week, I had 3 tiny, motion-activated cameras installed, one in the kitchen, one in the living room, and one in the hallway facing my bedroom door. All legal, all discreet, all connected to a secure cloud account Margaret helped set up. Melissa didn't suspect a thing. She thought she had broken me, that I was defeated, confused, paranoid. But I was watching, and I was recording. The very next afternoon, she walked into my bedroom while I was supposedly in the garden. She didn't see the hallway camera. She rifled through my drawers. She pulled out my scarf box, sniffed at my perfume, and opened my journal. And then, she took a piece of paper from her pocket, crumpled it slightly, and placed it between the pages of my diary. She walked out like nothing happened. That evening, I opened the journal. Inside was a grocery list I had never written, filled with bizarre items and scribbles in shaky handwriting, clearly meant to look like I was mentally declining. It was a trap. She was setting me up again. But this time, I had her on camera. I downloaded the footage, emailed a copy to Margaret, and backed up another to a private USB stored at the neighbor's house. To everyone watching, have you ever had to go to this extent just to defend your sanity? To prove you weren't losing your mind in your own home? Tell me in the comments if someone ever tried to manipulate your reality. It helps others too. And if this story is hitting your heart, please like it, share it, and subscribe. I don't just want your support, I want your voice to be part of this journey. And please tell me, where are you watching from? I know women around the world go through this, from the U.S. to Europe to Australia. I want to know how far this message of survival and strength reaches. That day, I looked at Melissa differently. She wasn't just cruel. She was calculated. She thought she was playing chess with a pawn. But she forgot I built the board. It happened on a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind where the world outside feels calm, but inside your home, the storm is always one breath away. Melissa had just finished one of her fake-caring routines, offering me tea, asking me if I remembered to take my vitamins. She always acted sweetest right before she launched her next attack. I watched her stir her own cup of tea and then walk past my chair, brushing my shoulder lightly. And then she whispered it. So low, so subtle, that it could have been mistaken for nothing, unless you were listening. I'm going to bury you in this house, old lady. And no one will even know it. I froze. She kept walking like she hadn't just threatened my life in the middle of our shared kitchen. My skin went cold. My breath caught in my throat. But my mind lit up like fire. Because just 2 days earlier, I had moved one of the hallway cameras into the dining room, hidden inside a decorative flower vase. She didn't know. And that vase caught everything. That night, I downloaded the footage, my hands shaking. The sound was low, but clear. Her words, that smile, the cold hatred in her voice, it was all there. This wasn't just emotional abuse anymore. It was intimidation. Threats. A clear sign that if I didn't act soon, something irreversible could happen. I sent the clip to Margaret. Within the hour, she called me, furious. Eleanor, we're going to the authorities. Now, we filed a formal report, gave them the footage, and I filed for a protective order under elder abuse and domestic intimidation. It was the beginning of something I never thought I'd need in my golden years, a legal defense against my own daughter-in-law. To those of you watching, have you ever been threatened so quietly, so cruelly, that you questioned whether it even happened? Have you ever had to pretend everything was okay just to protect yourself? Tell me in the comments if you've lived this nightmare. I'm reading every single one of you. And please, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel. Your support gives power to voices like mine, voices that were once silenced. And let me know where you're watching from. Are you in Canada? The UK? Somewhere far from me, but feeling the same pain? Because no matter where we are not alone. That whisper changed everything. It turned a victim into a fighter. And it turned Melissa into what she really was, a threat. But her time was running out. After the police took my statement and logged the footage, they didn't arrest Melissa yet. But they did something far more important. They sent a warning. A formal letter, stamped and sealed by the state, arrived 2 days later. Addressed directly to Melissa Harper Walters. It was short, cold, official. It stated that her behavior toward me, Eleanor Walters, had been recorded and reported. That I had filed for legal protection under elder abuse laws. That law enforcement would now be monitoring the case. And any further intimidation could result in criminal charges. When Melissa read the letter at the kitchen table, her hands shook. For the first time in months, I saw something new in her eyes. Fear. She stood up and stormed into the hallway, where I was watering the plants. You really went to the police? I met her gaze, steady and unblinking. I went to the truth. And it's about time it came home. Her lips parted like she was going to scream, but she didn't. She just stared. Cold. calculating. And now, cornered. That week, everything changed. She stopped calling me mom. She stopped pretending. The sweetness evaporated. But the insults? They became venom. "You're ruining this family," she snapped at me one morning. "No, Melissa," I said. "I'm saving it from you." Andrew noticed the tension, but still floated in a fog of manipulation. He blamed stress. "Maybe you two need space." "Your wife threatened my life," I reminded him calmly. "She didn't mean it," he mumbled. But he didn't meet my eyes. Let me tell you something, friends watching this, sometimes the people closest to you will know you're being abused and still choose silence, just because it's easier. If that's your story too, I'm so sorry. I see you. Please share your experience in the comments. It helps others realize they aren't the only ones. And if this story makes your heart ache or makes you angry, like this video, share it. Subscribe. Let this be a space where victims are finally heard. And tell me, where are you tuning in from? South Africa? Germany? Somewhere in the U.S.? Wherever you are, I want to remind you, you deserve to feel safe in your own home. After the letter came, Melissa grew more distant. But I knew this wasn't over. She wasn't going to go down quietly. And neither was I. When people can't silence your voice, they come for your strength. It happened the following week. I had just returned from a doctor's appointment, a routine checkup. Blood pressure, arthritis, nothing serious, just the things that come with age. My doctor prescribed my usual meds, one for inflammation, one for my heart, and a mild sleeping aid I took only on restless nights. The pharmacy delivered the package that afternoon. I placed the labeled bottles in the kitchen cabinet, same as always. But the next morning, something felt off. The pain in my joints was sharper. My hands, usually stiff but manageable, were barely able to hold the teacup. My chest fluttered lightly, but enough to scare me. I opened the cabinet and checked the bottles. They looked the same, but the pills inside weren't. My anti-inflammatory pills had a different shape. My blood pressure tablets were slightly off in color. I knew because I'd been taking them for years. I even kept a photo of my meds to avoid mix-ups. Melissa. It had to be her. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I quietly called the pharmacy to confirm the pill descriptions. Then I took the mismatched pills to my doctor, who confirmed my fear. They've been tampered with, Eleanor. These aren't the meds we prescribed. Someone switched them. My heart sank, not from the health scare, but from the deliberate cruelty. She wasn't just trying to manipulate me now. She was trying to weaken me, erase my body the same way she tried to erase my mind. I filed a second police report, and this time, I had both the tampered medication and the doctor's written statement. Melissa didn't know yet, but soon she would. That night, I lay in bed, clutching the blanket like armor. I thought about all the women, older women, who'd been told they were just paranoid or too sensitive when they sensed something was wrong. How many of them were actually being poisoned, isolated, betrayed? To those watching, have you ever had your health compromised by someone you trusted? Someone who thought you were too weak to fight back? Please share your story in the comments. Let others know they aren't alone. And if this chapter made you pause, made your heart race, or brought up painful memories like it, share it, and subscribe. This story is for the voiceless, for the ones whose silence was stolen by someone else's control. And let me know, where are you watching from today? Sweden? The UK? The U.S.? Brazil? This is happening all over the world. It's time we talked about it. Melissa thought I wouldn't notice. She thought she could slowly erase me. But she forgot I remember everything, and I had proof. Sometimes, God places the truth in your hands when you least expect it. And this time, it came to me in the form of a forgotten USB drive, left plugged into the back of the family computer. Melissa had gone to her weekly spa appointment, and Andrew was at work. I needed to print a letter for my lawyer, so I sat down at the desk. The moment I touched the mouse, I noticed the small, black USB blinking faintly behind the screen. At first, I ignored it. But something in my gut said, check it. I opened the drive, expecting work files, maybe some photos. But instead, there it was. A folder labeled Plan B, just in case. My hands trembled as I double-clicked it. Inside were PDFs of forged medical reports claiming I had early-stage dementia, a typed draft of a new will leaving all property to Andrew and Melissa, and even a fabricated financial summary claiming I was too unstable to manage my accounts. Every file had been created or edited by her email account. The timestamps were clear. The motive was clear. It wasn't just abuse anymore. It was fraud, premeditated, organized, and dangerously close to succeeding. I copied the entire folder to my own USB, then emailed a backup to Margaret with the subject line, I found everything. When Melissa returned home, she breezed past me like always. But I stood taller now, stronger. She didn't know that I had just uncovered her entire scheme, her alternate reality, where I was already powerless, where I didn't exist except on paper. But I did exist. And I was about to make her regret ever underestimating me. To those of you watching, have you ever stumbled across the one piece of evidence that proved you weren't crazy? That your instincts had been right all along? If that's you, tell me your story in the comments. I read every one. And please, if this chapter gave you chills, like it, share it, and subscribe to this channel. Your support is a light in the darkness for people like me and for others who need the courage to speak up. And don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. Because whether you're in Australia, the UK, the US, or anywhere else, this kind of betrayal doesn't have a border. The truth had finally landed in my hands. Now, it was time to use it. Some people wait until they're on their deathbed to speak their truth. I didn't wait. 3 days after I found the folder, I called for a family meeting calmly, politely, like it was about Sunday dinner or upcoming renovations. But inside me, a storm had already begun to roar. I told them to meet me in the living room at 7 p.m. sharp. Melissa rolled her eyes. Andrew looked tired, like a man stuck between two lives. I stood in front of them, holding nothing but a small envelope in my hand. I'm going to speak, I said, and I will not be interrupted. This is the last time we sit like this before everything changes. Melissa smirked. Oh, is this another one of your? I held up my hand. No interruptions. I walked over to the TV and plugged in the USB drive, the same one I'd backed up all her lies onto. I opened the folder marked Plan B, just in case. The room fell silent. The forged dementia reports, the fraudulent will, the medical manipulation, screenshots, dates, IP addresses. Melissa's smirk slowly melted into horror. Andrew's jaw dropped. Every one of these documents, I said, was either created or edited by your wife. And I have a lawyer, a notary, and a police officer who have all reviewed them. Andrew whispered, Melissa, what is this? She stammered. I didn't. This isn't. Someone must have. I didn't let her finish. I pulled out the printed threat transcript, the whisper she thought no one heard, and laid it in front of Andrew. She said this in our kitchen. Your wife. The woman who wanted me out so badly, she nearly killed me with fake pills, fake diagnoses, and forged paperwork. Tears welled in Andrew's eyes. Why? Why would you do this? Melissa snapped. Because she never made room for us. She treated me like an outsider. She never respected our marriage. I stepped forward, voice steady. You mean I didn't hand over the deed fast enough? Or my dignity? You didn't want a mother-in-law, Melissa. You wanted a victim. And then I turned to my son. And you, Andrew, you let it happen. He fell silent. For the first time in years, he looked at me not with guilt or frustration, but with shame. To those of you watching, have you ever gathered every ounce of courage to confront your abuser face to face? To finally say everything they thought you'd never dare? If that was your moment too, tell me in the comments. Let others know it can be done. That they can take their power back. And please like this video, share it with someone who needs the strength to speak, and subscribe if you believe it's never too late to stand up for yourself. And let me know, where are you from? What country are you in right now listening to my story? Because betrayal happens in every language. But so does justice. The living room fell silent. Melissa turned pale. And for the first time since she stepped into my home, I saw her realize she had lost. They say the truth will set you free, but before it does, it breaks the ones who built their lives on lies. After the family meeting, Melissa avoided me like the plague. She stopped making her usual sarcastic comments. She stopped pretending. She stayed in her room for hours, curtains drawn, blinds closed. The woman who once strutted through my home like she owned it was now unraveling. And I watched it happen. The day after I exposed her, Andrew didn't go to work. He stayed home. He didn't speak much to either of us. But I heard the argument through the walls that morning, his voice breaking, hers cracking. You lied to me, Melissa. About everything. You tried to take my mother's house. I was protecting us, she screamed. You were too blind to see she was controlling everything. He shouted back, she gave us everything. I stayed silent in the next room, sipping my tea. It wasn't joy I felt, it was justice. Cold, long overdue, and real. That evening, Melissa came downstairs. No makeup, puffy eyes. She didn't say a word, just stood in the hallway, staring at the floor. Then she whispered, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't respond, because sometimes silence is the loudest truth. She kept trying to start conversations, asking if I needed anything, offering to make dinner, even folding laundry she once called my chore. But I didn't fall for it. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Fear of losing the game she had built for years, now crumbling in front of her. To those of you watching, have you ever seen your abuser start to break down when they realize their mask is slipping? When their lies no longer hold power? It's not always satisfying. Sometimes it just feels hollow. Tell me if you've experienced that moment. Drop your story in the comments. I read all of them. And if this chapter spoke to you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps turn quiet stories into loud truths. Also, let me know, where are you from? What city? What country? I want to know how far this message is reaching, because no matter where we live, the pain of betrayal and the power of justice are universal. Melissa was starting to spiral, but I was rising, and the final blow was still coming. She thought I would never fight back. She thought I'd die before I ever took back my power. But I lived, and I learned. 3 weeks after the confrontation, after all the lies and all the cruelty were laid bare, I met with my lawyer and made the decision I had once sworn I never would. I filed for eviction. Yes, she was married to my son. Yes, she had lived under my roof for years. But this house was in my name. And after all the manipulation, stolen documents, fake diagnoses, and tampered medication, there was no reason on earth she deserved to stay even one more day. The paperwork took less than a week. The evidence we had gathered? Unshakable. Photos, audio, documents, testimonies. Even the pharmacy's signed report about the drug switch. I held the envelope in my hand like it was a sword. When I came home that evening, Melissa was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. Melissa, I said calmly, this is for you. She looked up and took it, smug at first. Then her face changed. What is this? An eviction notice, I replied. You have 30 days to leave. Legally filed, enforced by the court. And every bit of it backed by the evidence you so graciously left behind. Her hands trembled. You can't do this, she snapped, suddenly panicked. I'm your family. No, I said quietly. You're a lesson. One I'll never forget. Andrew came home just minutes later. She rushed to him, crying, holding the letter. She's throwing me out. After everything I've done for this family. Andrew didn't even take the envelope from her hands. He looked at me. Is it true? I nodded. It's done. He closed his eyes. then I support it." Melissa's knees gave out. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, but it was too late for apologies. Too late for rewinding the damage. The isolation. The threats. The calculated theft of my peace. To those of you watching, have you ever had to do something you never thought you would, just to protect your sanity, your dignity, your life? If this moment speaks to your soul, share your story in the comments. Let's lift each other up. And please, like this video, share it with someone you know who might be suffering in silence, and subscribe if you believe that sometimes the most powerful word a woman can say is enough. And tell me, where are you watching from? Are you sitting in a small town in Ireland? A big city in Canada? Somewhere in the quiet hills of New Zealand? Wherever you are, your pain is seen. Your voice matters. Melissa had 30 days. And for the first time in years, I had peace. The house felt quieter in the days that followed, heavier, like it was holding its breath. Melissa barely spoke. The woman who once controlled every corner of my home with her voice, her presence, her icy demands, now moved like a shadow. She stayed in her room. She didn't slam doors anymore. She didn't bark orders. She didn't look me in the eye. Until one morning, just 5 days before the eviction date, I found her standing in the kitchen, holding a coffee mug with both hands like a child bracing against cold. "I want to talk," she said quietly. I didn't respond. She began, her voice shaking. "I know I messed everything up. I was wrong. All of it. The lies, the pressure. What I said, what I did, it wasn't justifiable." Still, I didn't speak. I waited. Tears filled her eyes. Real ones this time. Not the kind she used to control my son. Not the ones she faked to get sympathy. "I was scared of becoming invisible in this family," she whispered. "But I became something worse. I became cruel. I saw you as an obstacle when I should have seen you as my second mother. And I'm so sorry." She took a step toward me. "Please, don't hate me. Just forgive me, Eleanor." I looked at her for a long moment. I saw the cracks in her armor, the guilt, the regret. But I also saw the years I lost, the nights I went to bed crying in silence, the birthdays she ruined, the whisper that threatened my life, the pills she tampered with, the lies she fed my son to turn him against me. "I don't hate you," I said softly, "but I don't trust you either. And trust doesn't come back with words. It comes with actions. Time. Consistency. You may be sorry now, Melissa, but some damage doesn't reverse." She broke down. Right there, in the kitchen where she used to mock my cooking, where she once said I should be in a home. And this time, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel small. I felt strong. To those of you watching, have you ever received an apology so late that it felt like salt in the wound, instead of healing? If you've ever had someone beg for forgiveness after breaking you, share your story below. I promise you, I'll read everyone. And if you found strength in this chapter, please like the video, share it with someone who needs courage, and subscribe for more stories like mine. And tell me, where are you from? What corner of the world are you watching this from? Because apologies may be universal, but so is the pain of hearing them too late. Melissa apologized, but she still had to leave, and I was finally ready to let her go. It was a Sunday morning, clear skies, birds chirping, the kind of day that almost feels too gentle for something as heavy as goodbye. I sat in my rocking chair near the front window, watching as Melissa packed her final suitcase into the trunk of her silver SUV. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was tied back. There were no dramatic speeches, no angry words. Just silence. Andrew stood nearby, arms folded, eyes sunken. The guilt in him was still fresh, still raw. He hadn't spoken much since the confrontation, but I knew he was beginning to see it all, the damage, the manipulation, the blind spots he let fester. Melissa looked up at the house one last time. She didn't wave. She didn't look at me. She just got into the driver's seat, shut the door, and drove off. No threats. No fake smiles. just the long-awaited exit. And as the car disappeared down the road, I took the deepest breath I'd taken in years. It felt like dust lifting from my lungs, like peace entering a house that had been sick for far too long. Later that afternoon, Andrew approached me slowly. "Mom," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm so sorry for not seeing it sooner, for letting it happen." I nodded. "You were caught in it too. But now you know, and now you have to be better." He sat beside me, and for the first time in years, it was just us. No noise, no lies between us. Just the bond that had once been broken but not destroyed. That night, I lit a candle by the fireplace. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just felt everything. The loss, the healing, the strength it took to survive. To those of you watching right now, have you ever had to watch someone walk away, someone who hurt you deeply, and felt the weight lift as they disappeared? If you have, share your moment in the comments. Your strength can help someone else take that first step. And if this story helped you find a piece of your own truth, please like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to this channel. We're building something here, a space for voices that have been silenced too long. And tell me, where are you watching from today? New York? South Africa? Norway? Let me know, because no matter where you live, healing after betrayal is universal. Melissa left. And I stayed, because I was never the one who didn't belong here. It's strange how quiet peace can be. After Melissa left, the house didn't just feel empty, it felt clean. Not in the physical sense, but emotionally. The air was lighter. The silence didn't sting anymore. It wrapped around me like an old friend. I started opening the curtains again. I played music in the kitchen while I cooked, not the bland, muted sounds I used to keep to avoid her sneers, but real music. Songs from my youth. Frank Sinatra. Ella Fitzgerald. Sometimes I danced with myself in the hallway. And for once, I didn't feel ridiculous. I felt free. I redecorated the guest bedroom, where I used to lock away my most precious things, fearing they'd be stolen. Now it's a reading nook. Sunlight pours in every morning, and I sit there with my coffee, wrapped in a soft blanket, reading books I never had time for. Andrew comes by more often now. Alone. Quiet. Regretful. He helps in the garden. Fixes leaky faucets. He even asked if I wanted to go visit Dad's grave together next Sunday. We haven't done that in years. He's trying. And I see that. But the biggest change? I walk through my house now and feel no fear, no paranoia, no double-checking locks, no hidden cameras. Just me, my walls, my rules. And it's beautiful. To those of you watching, if you're still waiting for your peace, don't give up. I waited too long. I endured too much. But it's never too late to reclaim your power, your space, your life. If this story gave you strength, please tell me in the comments. I want to know your story, even just a piece of it. And if you haven't shared before, maybe today's the day. Like this video if you felt even one sentence in your soul. Share it with someone you love, someone who might be hiding their pain behind a polite smile. And subscribe, because stories like this, they need to be heard. Also, let me know where you're watching from. Are you sitting in a small cottage in Wales? An apartment in Chicago? A farmhouse in rural France? Wherever you are, I see you. And you deserve peace too. Because this is my house, my rules, my peace, and no one will take it from me again.